Hello and welcome back to Narwhal News, our weekly podcast where we cover all the important FRC updates, competition predictions, and community events and more in less than 20 minutes. We are from FRC Team 3128, the Aluminum Narwhals from Canyon Crest Academy in San Diego, California. My name is Brent and welcome back to our second episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our first episode last week, and comment down below on our YouTube and our Spotify for any suggestions or topics you'd like us to break down. Now let's go to Justin with an analysis of starter bots and concepts outside of Open Alliance and Robot in 3 days. Now I'm back with Justin, who will be going over a couple starter concepts and robots. Justin, as you know, there are FRC teams with not that many resources, or rookie teams who may have no idea where to start. Can you give us a couple ideas for concepts that would be viable for these type of teams?
Well, I feel like this year there have been a lot of good robots being put out by the FRC community, such as R3D, First themselves, and just like other like these like products like WCP and like Rev and stuff to help the FRC teams to kind of develop more ideas and help them give ideas for their robots. So I feel like we should start with the very most basic starter robot that's been given, which was the Kitbot, given by First to all the FRC teams at kickoff. And basically, at its core, it is just a source intake with a ramp that can score into L1. And in my opinion, actually, it is probably one of the best robots for L1 scoring because its simplicity and because the chute intake and the scoring are on different sides, you don't have to turn around mid-cycle, which can save some time. However, obviously, it's still a starting off point, so it's missing many vital parts of the game, such as scoring the algae, climb, and that type of stuff. But despite its simplicity, many like even higher level teams have found uses for the Kitbot, such as like Rembrandt's running just L1 cycles and seeing some theoretical cycle paths, or I'm sure many of us have seen 9408's 4-piece auto that they posted very early into the build season, which basically just put the Kitbot on a swerve drive. And I think that can actually prove that the Kitbot can perform at competitions. A 4-piece auto is very impressive, especially that early. And if a Kitbot were to perform at a competition, I feel like after week one, its offensive viability kind of falls off a little bit, but a well-executed version of this robot could probably perform and maybe even make a playoff run at a week one competition. But it would need to do probably around 20 L1 cycles per match to do this, and its inability to guarantee any of the RPs, besides maybe the auto one, would probably hinder its ability to rank high.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Are there any other concepts you'd want to mention?
Well, obviously the Kitbot is just a starter robot, and teams are supposed to be inspired by and add on to it, which is what the Robonauts did with every bot. And now every bot is practically just a Kitbot, except the source intake and the scoring mechanism are kind of moved, like meshed into one. So you would intake and then turn around and score, which might be able to hinder your L1 scoring ability. However, they added a lot more features to the Kitbot to really flesh out its character and help it stand alone as its own robot, kind of. So one thing they added a deep climb, which seems to be pretty fast because the cage is kind of funneled into the climb mechanism. And it's really impressive, honestly, because it gives so many teams that might have lower resources, as you said, to be able to rank high because the deep climb essentially guarantees the barge RP, exactly. And they also added an algae manipulator, so it can intake algae off the ground and also off like where it's pre-placed onto the field and score that into the processor. So in my opinion, this adds so much to the robot, even though it might just be like a deep climb and an algae, right? And I think it would be able to rank decently high at early competitions because alongside an auto and like efficient L1 and processor scoring and maybe a favorable match schedule, the robot could probably be an alliance captain because of its ability to guarantee this barge RP, which is very helpful in early competitions.
Yeah, definitely. Every bot is a bigger contributor to all those RP compared to Kitbot. Are there any more concepts for today, Justin?
Well, there's some more complex robots that's been released from the community. So the one I want to highlight is the West Coast Products robot. And from a scoring game pieces and scoring game objectives point of view, it's much more complete than some of the other robots. So it can score all levels of the coral reef and take algae directly off the reef. But I don't think it showed off the ground in the video. But and then it could also score algae into the processor and also into the barge, which we have not seen from any robot. And also a shallow climb, which I don't think I've seen on any robot this year so far. So that was interesting to see. The coral scoring is very efficient because they use a funnel to funnel the coral in, and it does not need to turn around when scoring. and it seems like really efficient. Honestly, watching the video, I was really impressed, and in my opinion, like it could probably win early competitions. And with some like updates as like maybe the meta progresses, it could probably perform well at Worlds too.
Yeah, definitely. That funnel mechanism I think we'll definitely see a lot of teams leaning into that, especially since like it's way easier to intake from the source that way. Anything else for today, Justin?
Well, there's one more robot. That's the robot came out from Rev. And this robot is not as complex as a WC Pro robot, but it also can do all the things a WC robot can. So it can do L2 and L3, de-algify the reef, and score them into the processor. There's no climb shown in the video. And I think this might hinder the robot's ability to rank high at competitions, obviously, because of the barge RP. But being able to score L2, L3 alongside co-op would help it get the coral RP, I think. And in my opinion, the source intake, it has to like flip backwards, and in the video, the coral like collides with the wheel. So I'm not sure how that'll work out practically, but it's definitely a good jumping off point for teams to be inspired by, and I think that was obviously the whole point of it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your insight today, Justin. Those are some great starting concepts. And now I'm back with Abraham to discuss Open Alliance. Abraham, what's new this week in the world of Open Alliance?
Yeah, so for week 2, we've seen a lot more archetypes and more fleshed out designs. One specifically that's risen is using some sort of intake or something along the lines of that to double as some kind of climber. We've seen Scream try that with their intake, or at least they're trying to cat it, and we've also seen No Mythic trying to pivot their funnel to sort of double as a climber as well for that deep climb, which is worth so many points and that RP. And something I would also like to mention is some teams have started trying to ground intake coral, which is an interesting strategy depending on what functional requirements different teams have.
Yeah, definitely. I think being able to ground intake the coral will be extremely useful, but it'll be so hard to get that coral in that exact orientation for your intake unless you have some sort of serializer mechanism. But yeah, are there any other updates that you'd like to comment on?
Yeah, so we've since we've seen more archetypes, I would like to comment on a few of them. For one, we've seen Windup start to flesh out their CAD, and we see some sort of pivoting or pivot on an elevator that can pick up algae and coral. It looks very similar to West Coast products like Competitive Concept Bot with that pivot that can pivot downwards to pick up algae from the ground, or pick up algae, but also use it for picking up coral. And we've seen some of their active funnel tests to sort of censor those coral to go into that intake. Another one I'd like to comment on is, once again, I already mentioned it before, but No Mythic, they've been trying out that pivoting funnel, which is very interesting. We'll see. I guess we'll see how they do with it, especially since with the pivot, they're gonna have to figure out how to package a climb onto that as well. And it seems a lot of teams are trying out like passive, sort of passive funnels going through the elevator to sort of score. We see Clockwork try it. We saw Super Nerds make an alpha bot that does it, and that brings us onto another idea of some teams have started posting like videos of their alpha bots getting done. For example, Paradox, as I mentioned before, Super Nerds, Rembrandts with their kit bot and different designs, and we started to see like cycle counts. And something I'd really like to mention is scoring L1 perpendicularly seems a lot harder than it looks, since it rolls out of the trough sometimes or bounces out, which may worry some teams of, are coral going to get stuck in your robot's drivetrain, and how are you going to get them out if they do get stuck? And that sort of thing. Another design I'd like to comment on is Overtures. They are doing something similar to Spectrum's design, which is an elevator and then a double jointed arm of some sorts. And it seems that they've gone a step further and made their arm able to pivot. So let's pretend this is the elevator. They seem to be pivoting 180 degrees with their intake, but also strapped a Kraken onto it so they can use it to double as an algae and coral intake.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll see how that goes. It's a lot of degrees of freedom, but if there's any team that can pull it off, it's Overture.
Yeah, it's very clever. The packaging on that will probably be really nice. Yeah, are there any more Open Alliance threads that you really like this week?
Obviously, I have to go back to Rembrandts. they finally posted some archetype ideas. Yes, exactly. And we got to see their archetype that's very similar to Rev Ions, but with some modifications for, L4. I guess it'll be interesting to see how it'll do, especially picking up Coral from the intake station, because it seems to be require a bit of precise accuracy. But, there's April tags that can get it done, and it seems to be very fast at going up and down, as Rev Ion showed. And sort of scoring, and especially since that 180-degree pivot means that they don't have to spin their robot around when they're trying to go score at the reef.
Yeah, definitely. That really finicky intaking from the human player station, that was a point I wanted to bring up as well. Thank you so much for your Open Alliance insight today, Abraham, and we'll see you next week for more on Open Alliance. And now I'm back with our wiring lead, Colton, and one of our team coaches, Mike Brown, to go over one of our favorite Chief Delphi threads within the last week. 50 Fun Ways to Lose a Match was made by Justin Turvey, and it's made a lot of our team members laugh over the last week. Let's go over a couple of our favorites.
I'm in.
Alright, my personal favorite is make sure to reuse your batteries from match to match. I feel like that would completely optimize all of our robot potential, just really get us on that map there for reliability, consistency. What do you think, Colton?
Using the same battery in multiple matches is the fastest way to have a robot just like die on the field.
Yeah.
And it's just like a wall for all your teammates to have a fun way and try and get past.
Yeah, no, definitely. No systems check too. I love having a surprise out there on the field.
That's the way to go. I mean, checking is for nerds.
Keeps a little bit of random in there.
Yeah, I mean, why do we even need to check if the controllers are plugged in? I feel like that's not a big problem for the robot, right?
Actually, you should just pull a few out.
Yeah, who needs that many wires at driver's station anyways? Also, pre-match checklist, we don't even use it anyway. Just throw that clipboard out.
Again, checking things is for nerds. I tell you what.
Great memory by all of our team members. You don't even need a checklist.
Yeah.
You gotta have that little bit of surprise in there.
I think picking friends and alliance selection, do we need to? Should we? Well, it's worked out for us in the past.
That's the way to do it, for sure.
Fort Wayne was a favorite this year. Don't talk to any of the high-ranked alliance teams.
Never.
No, we will be the alliance captain.
That's right.
Guys.
That's right. And always forget to knock on wood. That's right. Always forget.
Our favorite Team 3128 tradition. Also, I just feel like keeping track of time in a match. Do we really need to know how far we are?
Or in the pits. Again, watches are for nerds.
I know. Who needs to show up to a match on time? 2v3s are the way to go.
Why not stop at 2v3? 1v3. Give us
0v3.
That's the way to do it.
Thank you so much for joining us for this week's feature segment on 50 Fun Ways to Lose a Match on Chief Delphi. To close out this week's episode, let's go over some team updates. Team Update 3 and 4 came out this week, so here are a couple important takeaways that we thought were good to mention. First of all, the game manual has been updated to include that no ramp or stool will be allowed in the processor zone for any human player stationed there. Additionally, Section 6.3.4.2 has mentioned that staged algae on the reef will not contact any core possibly scored in the L4 level. Additionally, in Section 6.5.2, the language has been clarified to say that in order to qualify for stage points, a robot must be contacting one and only one cage, eliminating the possibility of a double climb using 2 cages. In Team Update 4, algae was addressed again, saying that only the crosshatch algae would be used due to the problem that First has on hand, but one or more crosshatch algae will be available at the practice fields for teams to practice with. However, this does end up being a big disadvantage for any team unable to obtain the crosshatch algae for testing. Additionally, another quick update to pits. Each team had previously gotten a table in their pit along with a power outlet. Now the language in the game manual has been reflected to say that a table may be provided. So be sure to check with your event before going there if you do need a table in your pit. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Narwhal News. We're so glad to have you guys here. As always, comment down below on our Spotify or YouTube if there are any topics you'd like us to cover next week. Thank you so much for tuning in and keep on swimming.
Use